It is hour number 3. Welcome to it on a Playoff Football Friday live right here on the early line all across the SportsGrid network. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. One more hour to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern to preview everything you need to know for the start of Super Wild Card Weekend. 6 playoff matchups spread out over the course of the next 3 days. 2 on Saturday, a triple header on Sunday, a Monday night football finale. We've got picks, we've got previews, we've got best bets here in this final hour of this week on the early line.
Yes, we do, and including a poll that we're going to go over and yell at the TV screen even more. But I'm excited even, and I feel, Ben, every minute that goes by, like the meteorologists across the country, let's just start here in this aspect. Like, they usually hype up a storm and it never lives up to it. How come this weekend the games are getting worse and worse condition-wise before we're actually going to have kickoff? This is like the opposite direction. I'm getting more intrigued by the minute by seeing how cold the temperatures could be and how much snow now we might be getting in Buffalo. Love this weekend. Can't wait for it.
So, Donnie, here's the thing. A Fade the Public poll to end out hour 2 that we'll react to here to start off hour number 3. That's a little bit more contentious than I expected between these two hosts, between our guys in the back, John Shames and Joe Frizo, and the people out there. At SportsGrid TV on Twitter, the question was, which wild card weekend matchup are you most intrigued by? We'll show you the results in just a moment, but first, let's bring in that SportsGrid radio audience here to hour number 3 of a Playoff Football Friday on the early line. You're listening on Sirius XM, Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the mix. He is Donnie. I am Ben. So again, the Fade the Public poll wanted to get the people involved on this Friday morning. Which Super Wild Card Weekend game is the most intriguing? Browns-Texans, first game up on Saturday. Dolphins-Chiefs, the nightcap in a frigid Arrowhead tomorrow night. Packers-Cowboys, NFC rivals, iconic brands in the sport, facing off once again on Sunday afternoon in Dallas, or Sunday Night Football with all the storylines between the Rams and the Lions. We did not include the Monday game in Tampa between the Birds and the Bucks, and we did not include the largest spread of the weekend in Buffalo. The Bills a 10-point favorite against the Steelers. Don't get mad at us. Get mad at Elon Musk and Twitter. Only 4 options in any poll published. And Donnie, most of the public, more than 46%, voted for the Rams and the Lions. I completely agree. That's what I would have voted for. But I wanted to juice the results a little bit to not have it be a runaway. So I went Browns and Texans. And you're telling me the public got it wrong? Because it should be the Dolphins and the Chiefs despite a negative 25 wind chill temperature tomorrow night in Kansas City.
You're not supposed to be influencing these polls, Ben, in the wrong direction to try to balance things out. You're just supposed to let it ride out here. And by the way,
baby.
Here's the key thing. The NFL tells us, Ben, which game is the least intriguing of every weekend by the time slots they put them in, which is the Texans time slot in the first playoff game. The least intriguing game always goes first. That's why the Texans are in that slot there. So 11.8 and 11.8, they're tied with the Packers and the Cowboys. By the way, Packers and the Cowboys way more intriguing than Browns and the Texans. But just from a viewing standpoint, we just had Adam Kaplan on. We love anarchy. We love apocalyptic things. We love things that we've never seen from the comforts of our own home, which includes you watching that game on Saturday night between the Dolphins and the Chiefs going like, man, thank goodness I'm not out there. We love that stuff here. We'll watch it play out. The guys' faces will turn purple during this one. There's so many aspects that we don't even know what to expect, which makes it, for me, by far the most intriguing. I can't believe the people sold out of a dome game this weekend when we have something we might never envision again in the National Football League with the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Very disappointed here, Ben.
We're talking about a negative air temperature, probably around -1 to -3 degrees. And what the real temperature is, not accounting the real field temp based on wind chills, that's going to be -25 to -28. They say, Donnie, that if your skin is exposed to that cold temperature for any longer than 10 to 15 minutes, frostbite is almost a virtual guarantee. How about a football game in that weather that will decide a spot in the AFC divisional round between the Chiefs and the Dolphins? Let me ask you this, Donnie. Do you think if the game was flipped in Miami, or let's say if it was on a Saturday night and it was only 50 degrees inside Arrowhead and the Dolphins were at full strength, that the public would have voted for that game first and foremost?
I think they might have done that opposite, right? And I guess you could equate it to human nature, Ben. Take the turnpike here in New Jersey. Hey, everybody's driving along fast. It's great. Nobody's paying attention to the guys going south when you're heading north. But when you do, Ben? Hey, why is there a bunch of police? Why is there 5 ambulances? Ooh, look at that. The rubbernecking on the right side looking at the left side. We like nonsense here as a humanitarian race here, right? So we like car collisions. That's going to be a car collision Saturday night. We're supposed to be gravitating towards that, Ben.
4.5 is the spread in favor of Kansas City. Total making its way down for a very chilly night in KC. 44 is now that over-under. Most of the public, though, more than 46%, voting for the Rams and the Lions. And how could you fault them from a narrative and storyline standpoint? The first playoff game in the Motor City since January of 1994. That's 3 decades ago. The Lions were looking for their first playoff win in 32 years since January of 1992, the 1991 NFL campaign. Matthew Stafford, after his first 12 years of his NFL career in Detroit, makes his return to Ford Field. Oh, the guy on the other side, Jared Goff, faces off against his former team, where his former head coach, Sean McVay, is still the head man in Los Angeles, who won a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford, appeared in one with Jared Goff, and they only scored 3 points in that game against the New England Patriots. The storylines abound for Sunday night in Detroit.
Yeah, and by the way, and again, whoever made this poll behind the scenes for us here, I guess they were scared of that Pittsburgh-Buffalo reaction, that they might actually be the number 1 seed here in this poll. Because why? 22 degrees at kickoff, 25 mile an hour to wind, snow down in the forecast here. Somebody hates weather behind the scenes, where we're going to be picking a dome game as opposed to these awesome scenarios that we're not used to seeing here. Madness here. Absolute madness.
Yeah. It's the same 2 knuckleheads that think Tulsa, Oklahoma is the Midwest. Of course they're fading weather this upcoming weekend for Super Wild Card Weekend. You and I, Donnie, 2 true football guys, love the lake effect snow that we might see on Sunday afternoon in Buffalo, with at least sustained winds around 20 to 25 miles per hour. And so that is an interesting thing, as we'll preview the game up next. It's the largest spread of Super Wild Card Weekend. Double digits, 10 points in favor of the Bills. The over-under is 35.5. To cover that many points in a game that is not expected to have many of those points, with a total of 35.5 in those conditions, is it going to be more competitive than we expect for the debut of the triple header on Sunday in Western New York? We circle the wagons up next on the early line. Sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12, who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We have previewed 4 of the 5 games over the next 2 days to kick off Super Wildcard Weekend so far on this Playoff Football Friday on the early line. It's time for game number 5, the opening game of the tripleheader on Sunday in Western New York. And boy, it's going to look like Western New York off the shores of Lake Erie on Sunday afternoon. Heavy wind and lake effect snow expected and in the forecast for Sunday in Orchard Park. The Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bills, the 2 seed in the AFC. The Steelers, the 7th and final seed in the AFC playoff picture. A total working its way down, 35.5. The largest spread of the weekend. It is 10 points in favor of Buffalo. Donnie, let's just start with the quick math of it all. For the Buffalo Bills to cover a 10-point double-digit spread where the game is expected to have 35 points or so, how does Buffalo even get that done?
They don't get it done. And I think the Buffalo Bills win this game. They're the better football team. But in what, world are we living where the Buffalo Bills are a 10-point favorite? Now, maybe you could say, okay, obviously we look at the weather conditions and the way the teams played this season. I understand that. But this also isn't the same Pittsburgh Steelers team that it was early in the season and midway through it, where Kenny Pickett and/or Mitchell Trubisky was your quarterback and they couldn't move the football at all. You actually have a legitimate passing game now. But let's even remove that, Ben, from the conversation. You have a team in the Pittsburgh Steelers that is the underdog. What's the ultimate equalizer in sports? It's weather conditions. Normally, with the rain's coming down hard, it makes both teams here, have to play hard. You saw that last week in Baltimore, right? You had the backups playing for the Baltimore Ravens sticking around the Steelers. Why? Because that's what happens when the elements even the playing field. So now you're telling me here that the Buffalo Bills, just because they play in Western New York and they're used to those temperatures, are going to be the better team? I know as well as you do, Ben. You take a look a couple years ago. Oh, Bill Belichick went in there and threw 3 passes when it was heavy winds in cold conditions and beat this football team. I can't believe, we'll start right there, that this line is 10 points.
I can't either. And Buffalo, as more than a touchdown favorite this year, has not been good covering numbers. 2-6 against the spread when they have laid a touchdown or more this season. 6-2 straight up, which means they've lost twice outright when they've been favored by the odds makers to at least win by a touchdown. Meanwhile, death, taxes, Mike Tomlin winning at least 8 games and winning as an underdog. The Steelers this year as a dog are both 6-4 against the spread and 6-4 straight up. I mentioned it earlier, Donnie, when we previewed the first game tomorrow in Houston. The Texans, the Ravens, and the Steelers. 3 teams out of 32 in the NFL booked as an underdog multiple times this year that have a winning record outright. The Steelers are 6-4, but they have never been more than a 4.5-point underdog in any of those 10 games booked as a dog this year. Last week, terrible weather for the Steelers and a must-win game. Mason Rudolph led them to that against the Ravens reserves in the regular season finale in Baltimore. 17-10 was the final score, staying under a total that was in the low 30s. The Steelers did go over in their previous 4 games entering the regular season finale. But obviously, with 35.5 as the over-under, we are not expecting a ton of points come Sunday in Buffalo. And let's start there with the quarterback comparison. The Steelers are in this spot behind Mason Rudolph because they won their final 3 games of the regular season, all with Mason Rudolph as the starting quarterback. But he's not expected to do all that much through the air. Neither is Josh Allen. And again, that takes into account the weather forecast for Sunday in Buffalo and the heavy winds that we expect. It is estimated, Donnie, around 20 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds and those gusts on Sunday in western New York.
You're going to be playing field condition. We don't know if there's going to be a lot of snow in this game, but as you said, we're not talking about a wind gust around 20 miles an hour. No, that's the entire way. So you're going to be looking at the kicking game saying, all right, are we going to kick extra points? Are we going for 2-point conversions? Are we actually going to kick 38-yard field goal attempts on 4th and 3? Or are we actually going to be going for it here? So it does open up the run game from here, which particularly you take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Najee Harris and, of course, Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren at the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, his number 36.5. Najee Harris at 60.5. Also, James Cook on the opposite side, 65.5. Why, Ben? It makes sense. There's going to be extra touches for the running backs in this game. And as that graphic pointed out, what do you mean? 150 for a starting quarterback in the NFL, Mason Rudolph, he should breeze through that. Maybe so. But if we do have winds sustained at 25-plus miles an hour with snow coming down, he's not going to be very accurate moving the football downfield, which brings me into Josh Allen. Doesn't it feel right? Like, isn't this the game here, over 38.5 rushing yards? You just auto-bet that because you know the quarterback power plays are coming left and right. You get in the red zone, you're trying to pick up first downs. You're not even handing that football off. You're just saying, Josh Allen, make a play. Or even just dropping back, 1,000, 2,000. All right, you know what? Nobody's opening here and the wind is blowing. Let me just take off. So I think from a betting perspective here, I'm more looking ground game than aerial attack, and rightfully so. But Josh Allen certainly should be one of those focuses that you're looking at by saying he should get 40 yards rushing in this game. Why? He'll probably, Ben, have 10 to 12 opportunities rushing in order to get that.
Bad weather or not, 38.5 is the rushing yards prop for Josh Allen. When the weather, though, does start to turn in December, in regular seasons past, Josh Allen runs like a freight train through you. He went over 38.5 in both of the games the Bills played in January this year. He went under this number, but never less than 20 in both of the playoff games for Buffalo a season ago, but over in both of the playoff games in the 2021 NFL postseason for the Bills. And here's the story once again. Buffalo is the number 2 seed in the AFC playoff picture. They are the largest favorite of Super Wildcard Weekend to advance to the divisional round. They are laying 10 points. In the story for the Buffalo Bills, who won the AFC East Division, winning in South Florida last Sunday night in game 272 out of 272 in the true regular season finale for the 4th consecutive year. It's been 4 AFC East divisional championships in a row for Buffalo, but only 1 AFC Conference Championship game appearance and never a Super Bowl appearance. Is this the year finally, Donnie, that Buffalo reaches Super Bowl 58?
I don't think so, because I'm still going with the Baltimore Ravens having home field advantage and a better path with the, bye week that you get to relax on. And also, this is a little bit of bad circumstances for Buffalo. You love home field advantage. And I understand, like usually, again, you focus your home field advantage on the Miami Dolphins coming up to Buffalo and playing in 22-degree weather, where it's like, hey, we're used to practicing in this. We should be better equipped to handle this. Now, nobody's equipped to handle 30-mile-an-hour winds here during the game. 22 degrees here with a wind chill temperature around 0. And I get Josh Allen probably your perfect quarterback quarterback for those circumstances. But again, just going back a few short years here, Bill Belichick formulating a game plan with a rookie quarterback not to throw the football beats you in your own building when you're supposed to be built for this type of weather here. And again, Ben, we're not talking about 2.5 as a spread here. That's 10. You could easily 17-10 final. Hey, Steelers walk away with an easy cover in this one. I think the Bills win this game, but I can't believe it's 10 points. There's no way this game closes at 10 at FanDuel. It's got to be less than that.
Yeah, I would think so. If it ticks under 10, do you lay the 9.5 with Buffalo? I still don't think so. I think the Bills could win by a touchdown. I'm not sure it approaches double digits. Again, think of what you are asking for Buffalo to cover as a double-digit favorite in a game that is expected to have 35.5 points from that over-under. What are the possible outcomes? 21-3, 17-3, 24-10. All of the scoring coming from Buffalo. Very little for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, oh, by the way, Najee Harris has a rushing yards prop of 60.5. He has had at least 78 yards on the ground in the last 3 games for the Steelers, in which they won all 3 to earn this postseason appearance. That has been key for Pittsburgh in this new offense under Mason Rudolph, and Najee has scored 4 touchdowns in those last 3 games. If that is going to be the expectation for the offensive formula on Sunday in Western New York, I would jump on that Najee Harris prop now before it gets on the rise by Sunday afternoon. Hardwood handicaps briefly before your picks for Super Wild Card Weekend. Up next. Sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, your mind. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those 2 plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars have, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Hardwood handicaps for this Friday before we dive into the football weekend with a playoff pick six coming your way up next. But who would we be if not the two most premier NBA handicappers live right here on the Sports Grid Network if we didn't look at the night that we have on this Friday around the association? A great headline for our first game up from the boys in the back, Beam versus Bell. The Purple Beam of Sacramento, the Liberty Bell, of course, of Philadelphia. A game in Philly tonight where Joel Embiid is not expected to play. Donnie, that will be the 10th game of the year that he has missed. And although he was the MVP frontrunner for the last few weeks, let's not forget the game minimum, 65 of the 82 in a regular season, you need to hit to be considered for player awards this year. It's a virtual pick'em at this moment, minus 108 both sides. Sacramento on the spread, listed as the slight road favorite now, and over-under at 241. A pick'em, who wins?
Yes, typically the Sixers are a very good home team, but also typically the Sixers want Joel Embiid on the court, which he won't be activated tonight for that. Maxey, Melton, Batum, Harris, and Reed in that starting lineup. But you flip it over to the Sacramento Kings, yes, a long way from home, but their starters are there. Fox, Herter, Barnes, Murray, and Sabonis. So if we're trying to get a betting aspect from it, I did like the way the Sixers played in a loss against the Atlanta Hawks. It was a high-scoring affair, so it's not as if if Joel Embiid doesn't play, they can't score. They can. But the guy focused on that last game was Tobias Harris to go over his points prop of 20.5 points, which he easily went past. This time they raised it up a little bit higher at the FanDuel Sportsbook to 22.5. I still think he is going to eclipse that because this total is sitting in the low 240s. We're expecting to get points. We got him in the last game. Joel Embiid sat out. We know the Sacramento Kings are going to bring some tempo here. Tough to call for me the side in this basketball game, but I am looking forward to Tobias Harris stepping up once again because there's extra shots to go around, and he'll be able to take them as he did in the last game.
The Sixers have lost 3 in a row. They now fall to 23-13. Still that third best record, though, in the Eastern Conference. Sacramento in the 5 spot as of this moment out west, 23-14. So a half game separates these two teams and their respective comparisons in either conference. No Joel Embiid tonight. Domantas Sabonis. Have yourself a Friday in Philadelphia. Points, rebounds, and assists, 44.5, a number he has been over in 4 of the last 6. One of the 2 times he was under in their most recent game, he still had 41 combined. Or you just look at a triple-double, something he has done in 3 of the last 5 for Sacramento, a plus 290 price. Next up, a Sunshine State battle in South Beach. Miami and the Magic tonight. It's Heat versus Orlando, a 3.5-point spread in favor of those Heat. The over-under 221. Not many props out as of this moment, DRS, for either side. For Orlando, Paolo Banchero and Jalen Suggs. They both have a points prop. Only Tyler Hero has one available for Miami. Of course, the Heat have been without Jimmy Butler for the last week or so. Miami, a 3.5-point home favorite. What do you like tonight in the battle in the state of Florida?
Yeah, certainly interesting starting lineup here we're anticipating for those Miami Heat, which we're used to seeing Jimmy Butler in the lineup, but he's been out for quite some time now. Tyler Hero, Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez, Bam Adebayo, and my favorite one here is Nikola Jovic starting the starting lineup for the Heat tonight as anticipated. Last time I was wrong, Ben. I went with Tyler Hero saying, okay, I think we get a solid performance out of him because Jimmy Butler, again, not there. Somebody's got to take the shots. He did. He played 36 minutes, Ben, shot 21 times, but stayed under his points prop. I'm going to back him tonight because shooters always shoot. He played 36 minutes. He went 7 of 21. I still think he's going to take 20 or more shots in this game. I'll take Tyler Hero to the over, but also I do think the Miami Heat with the home court advantage will be able to put away the Orlando Magic here tonight.
A 3.5-point spread, Miami this year as the favored side, 9-11 against the number. Orlando, meanwhile, as an underdog, a team on the come-up in the Eastern Conference, 16-9 ATS as a dog, 16 covers, 10 outright victories for Orlando. What a rough week it has been for the Memphis Grizzlies. We learned early this week that Ja Morant, with a torn labrum in his shoulder, would be out for the remainder of this year after being suspended for the first 25 games of this NBA season. And then we learned yesterday that Marcus Smart will be out for the foreseeable future for this Grizz lineup as well. They're an 8-point home underdog tonight in the Grind City against the LA Clippers that are on the opposite of a bad week. The Clippers have won 14 of their last 16 games, in 8-point road favorite. Does the good times continue to roll for LA tonight, walking in Memphis?
Yeah, they do. And by the way, the Memphis Grizzlies in that last win against Dallas was like, man, I didn't see that coming here. You're out, Ja Morant, maybe you get a punch. But we see this so many times that when you get your head coach fired, that next game bump, they're like, okay, we could still play. We'll have extra energy. Well, you got that bump against the Mavericks. I don't think that's going to continue again tonight, as you said, with Marcus Smart out. That's a starting lineup that's lacking a lot. But you know whose starting lineup isn't lacking anything right now? That's the Los Angeles Clippers. Harden, Man, George, Leonard, and Zubac due to start tonight in this game. I do think it's a road double-digit victory for the Clippers here, rounding into form against a team that's slowly starting to disappear probably in the NBA standings.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough for Memphis to keep their heads above water the rest of this year. Third worst record out west, 9 games below 500. I would expect that to be 10 games below 500 tonight. I would agree, Donnie. A big spread, sure, 8 points for a team on the road. But LA this year as a favorite, 18-12 against the number. Player points in this game. Desmond Bane had 30-plus for Memphis in that first game since the Grizzlies learned that Ja Morant would be out for the year, 27.5. Kawhi Leonard got paid earlier this week, the 3-year, $153 million extension. He had 27 in his game following. 24.5 is his points prop tonight out in the Grind City. Speaking of teams struggling right now, Memphis, third worst record out west. Golden State, now the fourth worst record out west. The Dubs, 3 games below 500, 17-20 straight up this year. Donnie predicted it. He was on the Warriors under before this season got underway, and now the underdogs are the Dubs tonight on the road in the Windy City, a 3-point spread in favor of the Bulls.
Now, back-to-back games, the Warriors just looked atrocious, particularly the very last game they played. So you take a look and say, well, it's pretty easy. The Bulls are at home. I'll just take the Bulls at -3. But sometimes when you start to have those swirling storms, like, maybe Steve Kerr has lost the locker room. Steph Curry needs some help. He's not getting it here. We're still waiting on Draymond Green to get back. Who knows when that is actually going to happen? I actually like the Warriors in this spot here because I still don't trust the Chicago Bulls, even though we have Zach LaVine back in that lineup. They're a better overall starting lineup. But something to be said about that line looking a little bit short to me, specifically where the Warriors are headed right now and not looking good over the past 2 outings here. I look for a big game out of Steph Curry. I'll take the 3 points in this game with the Golden State Warriors on the road in a bounce-back spot, just from an advantage of not really a handicap of X and O's, but that's a veteran team that's been embarrassed. I don't think that's going to continue much longer. They should put up a good effort tonight in the Windy City.
Listen, when Golden State has not been expected to win, booked as the underdog, they've at least covered numbers. 10-5 against the spread. But again, only 3 outright victories as a dog in those 10 covers this season. Chicago 8-7 against the number as a favorite. They've won 3 straight. They have covered as a single-digit favorite in all 3 of those games, the previous 2 going over. I don't know if Golden State wins, but there has been a lot of conversation from Steph Curry about the Warriors trying to figure out their offensive identity moving forward this year and needing to do so very, very quickly. Because of that, I think we see some points on this Friday night at the United Center, over 228. Another game out in the Western Conference in the Mile High City. It's the Denver Nuggets hosting the New Orleans Pelicans. An 8.5-point spread in favor of the Nugs. The over-under 229. A big number out in Denver. Can the Nuggets cover?
I do think the Nuggets can cover, but I'm not going to bet on that here. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to take the points in this game, like the way the Pelicans have been playing as of late. Now, it's hard to go into elevation, but if I am going to get an honest effort out of Zion Williamson and that crew, I'm going that way. Give me Ingram and Williamson in that to balance that team out. Not to say they win it outright, but they keep it close enough and stay inside the number. I'm going Pelicans tonight on the road against the Nuggets.
The Pelicans, one of the better underdog teams around the NBA. In fact, it's the Pels, the Kings, the Pacers, and the Thunder. 4 teams around the association, Donnie, that have an outright winning record booked as an underdog. New Orleans is 10-7, straight up as a dog this year, 11-5-1 against the number as an underdog. Of course, we know at altitude, Denver is great, a 15-4 home record straight up this year, but booked as a home favorite, laying 8.5 points tonight. Denver 10-8-1 against the spread. Something to keep an eye on for Nikola Jokic. Those points props have been a little bit limited here as of late. He hasn't been scoring a tremendous amount. Now it's 25 and a hook. I would keep an eye on that number for Nikola Jokic tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. The reasons we call it a playoff preview potentially, because if the season ended today, the Nuggets would be the 3 seed in the Western Conference, and the New Orleans Pelicans would be the 6 seed in the Western Conference. The Pels, 8 games above 500. The Nuggets, 13 games above 500. And meanwhile, the Thunder, who knocked off the Blazers last night with the 5th largest margin in NBA history, 62 points. Now we have a tie for the 2 best records out west in that top spot in the standings, Donnie. Minnesota and OKC, both 26-11.
Yeah, I'm interested. Again, we've had this conversation many times on the show. How do we figure that these teams that are playing very well and maybe haven't been battle tested in the playoffs hang on at the end of the season, take those standings, and go into the postseason as the number 1, number 2, or number 3 seed? And can they hold on? And will they get respect from the odds makers here? It'll still be determined a lot. But just to get back to this Pelicans-Nuggets game, if they're going to win this basketball game or stay close to Pelicans, I'll take Brandon Ingram over 20.5 points on his prop here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Good night in the NBA. Big weekend in the NFL.
A playoff pick 6 for that big weekend, a super weekend, a super wild card weekend. That's next. You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those 2 plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A super wild card weekend pick six live right here on a postseason football Friday on the early line. Again, 6 games on this super wild card weekend spread out over 3 days. A doubleheader to begin the playoffs in the NFL tomorrow on a Saturday. 3 more games on a Sunday. A Monday Night Football finale. We will save Monday night in Tampa between the Buccaneers and the Eagles for Monday when we're back live right here on the early line. So the playoff pick six, as I go over my co-host to make sure it's all this.
No.
Part of it is not, but that's okay.
Yeah, because we're not going to have a teaser on Monday. We're going to have just a regular teaser at that point. Come on, what are we doing here? Got to include it. My goodness.
All right, listen, I think that's pretty
I feel like
fair.
You're disrespecting the Eagles this whole show, too. Like, no talk about them. Like, no, we should actually lead the broadcast with the Eagles game. That's the most intriguing one. How about that?
I'm surprised you didn't ask Cap that wonderful question about Nick Sirianni and his future in Philadelphia if the Birds do lose on Monday night. All right, we'll allow the teaser, but nothing from the prop category. A reminder of what the playoff pick six looks like. It's our favorite anytime touchdown scorer of the weekend. A moneyline underdog who might just pull off the outright upset. Our favorite under of the weekend, an alt line that gives you plus money and a chance to hit. Our favorite yardage prop of this weekend. And we combine forces, even on Monday night, for a 2-leg 6-point teaser. Super wild card weekend is here. And where are we going to find some pay dirt?
Yeah, we're going to find some pay dirt there in the Motor City. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a wide receiver, probably going to score. Cooper Kupp, yeah, he could probably get a touchdown as well. But the one guy I'm putting my mark on is Puka Nacua at a plus 125 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Has scored in 2 of the last 3 games, but really emerging as that frontline guy. And if I do think, and bet already, Ben, that 1.5 touchdown passes to the over for Matthew Stafford, that probably means at least 2 guys are going to catch a touchdown pass. I would not be shocked if we got a touchdown from Puka Nacua and also Cooper Kupp, but I'm betting here. Nakua's that big play guy now. I can see it right now. You saw it last week. Justin Jefferson absolutely ate and got deep whenever he wanted to. Somebody's getting deep in this game. I think it's Nacua. I'll take the plus 125 price. Puka Nacua, anytime touchdown for those Los Angeles Rams, Ben.
The Lions secondary mightily struggling down the second half of this season. It will be part of the reason that I look at Cooper Kupp in the alt line in just a little bit. But it is interesting. Nacua has a higher receiving yards prop, 76.5. Kupp at 68 in a hook. But Cooper Kupp, a better anytime TD price. Both guys expected to have a big night. Love the value there. I go to Josh Allen on Sunday in the wintry conditions of Western New York. Minus 105 for Allen to score a touchdown. 15 rushing touchdowns this year for the Bills quarterback. He has scored in 12 of the 17 games overall. Did not score last week, but prior to the regular season finale, 8 rushing TDs in the last 5 games for the Buffalo Bills. We have spoken at length about what the weather conditions are going to be Sunday in Buffalo. Sustained winds at 20 to 25 miles per hour, which makes anything the quarterbacks want to do through the air very difficult. But Josh Allen is a Mack truck that runs like a freight train off the tracks, even in conditions that aren't terrible. But now into the postseason, when it's expected to be bad, he is going to rely on the legs. 38.5 is rushing yards prop. To find pay dirt, it's minus 105. Josh Allen will do that against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday.
Yeah, and I do believe he will as well, because that quarterback power is going to be a real thing, Ben, specifically if that windy conditions pop up. And you're talking about extra chances to score touchdowns. Why? Who wants to rely on a field goal in a game that we're going to have gusts probably over 30 miles an hour and windy conditions going along with some snow in the forecast? It only makes sense. And I've talked about this, Ben, so many times this year. Look, Josh Allen, week 2, week 3, hey, buddy, look, babe, Save your body for the long haul. There is no long haul if you lose these football games. He's going to put it all on the line, if it even means Supermaning himself, Ben, into the end zone if the team needs it.
And that leads you into the moneyline underdog pick for the weekend. It's the largest spread of Super Wildcard Weekend, double digits in favor of Buffalo. So the Bills are going to win outright, right?
Look, I do think the Bills win this football game. I said, Donnie, what the hell? You're betting 4-1 price here on Pittsburgh to win it as your bet. Well, hear me out on this, though. There's a legitimate chance that we don't know what to expect on Sunday. The ultimate equalizer is the rain and the snow and the wind, if those conditions, along with cold, do end up being in the forefront in Buffalo. So for myself, I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers as a much better football team heading down the stretch. And also, look at some of the wins that the Buffalo Bills, one of the hottest teams in football, have had over against opponents that they beat by a touchdown or less. If I'm getting a 4-1 price, and I truly believe the fourth quarter is going to be a one-possession game, how can I pass up the 4-1 price on the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game? If this game was played in Orchard Park, New York, and the weather temperatures were 45 degrees, no rain or no wind, of course, I think the Buffalo Bills would mash the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if we're getting conditions that we think could be egregious in passing, this game is going to slow down to a crawl where mistakes can be made. And quite frankly, you know who made a lot of mistakes this year? Yeah, that's Josh Allen at quarterback. Wow. This game is going to be close, under 10 points. I can't pass up the 4-1 price here on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
6-2 straight up this year for Buffalo, booked as a touchdown favorite or more, which means when they were favored to win a game by 7, they lost outright twice, and only 2-6 against the spread when booked as a touchdown favorite or greater this year. My moneyline underdog, the Houston Texans, plus 116. I shared it earlier in the show. There are 3 teams, including Donnie's Pittsburgh Steelers, this year that were booked as an underdog multiple times this year that had a winning record as an underdog straight up. The Baltimore Ravens, 2 times, a perfect 2-0. The Steelers, 10 times, 6-4. The Texans, 9 times, 5-4. And Cleveland is the favored side, and I agree with it. And Joe Flacco has been sensational. In the last 4 starts he has made for Cleveland, he has thrown for at least 309 yards, including 368 against Houston, week number 16. But he has also put the football in harm's way. In every game he has started, all 5 for the Browns. 13 touchdowns, but to 8 interceptions. He has thrown an INT in every game. Is that going to rear its ugly head in this playoff game? I think so. I'm not entirely sure who wins the football game, but if I had to take a moneyline underdog this weekend, I think the Texans are the best spot. Surprised, Donnie, that neither of us picked the Rams. I think that will probably be the most likely spot the public looks for a moneyline underdog this weekend. Now, with some pace, your favorite under of Super Wildcard Weekend is what?
It's going to be Miami and Kansas City. This morning when we were putting in the pick 6, it was at 44 at the FanDuel Sportsbook. You know, it's now 43.5, and I agree. I still can't get over that this game is being priced in the mid-40s as if we're still going to be, hey, highlight reel all over the place. Number one, the team comes in banged up here. It's the Miami Dolphins. I understand that. But this isn't the Kansas City Chiefs winning high-flying scoring affairs over the past 5 years like they were with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce being 100% healthy and younger out there on the football field. But if we are going to get increased wind that can approach 15 miles an hour sustained with temperatures in a real feel of minus 25, stop the madness. How is this going to be a wide open attack on either side? It'll be more like a muddle huddle at this point, and that's what I'm looking forward to this weekend. As much as this game would have been really interesting playing in good conditions, I love the fact it's being played in these frigid cold conditions. Give me the under, man.
44.5 was the number yesterday. I bet it then. It is now down by a full point, 43 and a hook. A total that is also dropping is the game on Sunday in Western New York between the Steelers and the Bills. 36.5 earlier this morning, now 35 and a hook. And when I was looking at the numbers last night, the first half total was at 18.5. The second half total was 16.5. Normally in football games, the opening half total is less than the second half as the teams get accustomed to one another and start to pick up the pace more in the final 2 quarters. I think the thought here is Buffalo lays it on Pittsburgh early as a 10-point favorite and then coasts in the second half. But if the weather conditions are as bad as we expect for Sunday afternoon, I'm not sure there's going to be a ton of scoring at all. And I don't think they come out of the gates very, very hot. Steelers, Bills, under first half total of 18 and a hook. Alternate line with a little bit of plus money. Where are we going?
Alternate line for me, Patrick Mahomes. He say, like, Ben, I like where you went here, by the way, with the Buffalo Bills at quarterback. He said, you know what? I'm going to take a look here at Josh Allen. I think he can rumble for touchdowns. I also think Josh Allen can get yards. But a big game runner, you know who that is? It's Patrick Mahomes. And in conditions that are not going to be conducive to a lot of offense, Patrick Mahomes will be forced into a running back much more than you might typically think he would during the season. And again, it's that same philosophy. If there are yards to gain as a quarterback in weeks 3, 4, or 5, what are you going to take a look at? Hey, live to fight another day. There is no other day. They're going to lean on Patrick Mahomes. So that alt number for me, plus 182 for 40 yards out of Patrick Mahomes.
So I already bet Cooper Kupp over 67.5 receiving yards against the Detroit Lions for reasons Donnie and I have both spelled out. You look at the last couple of games, Justin Jefferson had over 140 yards and then 192 in the regular season finale last week. CeeDee Lamb torched this secondary to the tune of 227. The week prior to that, 74 receiving yards for the top guy that Detroit faced. Chris Olave has had 119 yards. Pretty much to say the Lions secondary has not been good here in the second half of this season. And I still believe when push comes to shove in the playoffs, the Puka Nacua is going to get his, but Cooper Kupp is going to lead the way. Every time he has gone over 68.5 receiving yards this year, Cooper Kupp has had at least 111 receiving yards. That connection with Matthew Stafford for Stafford's big game back in Detroit, I think pays off in a big way. Cooper Kupp, 100 plus receiving yards at plus 255 against Detroit, Donnie.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there because we're expecting a team that's going to be able to attack a secondary. And hallelujah here, Ben, for the Honolulu Blue and the Lions. We don't have to worry about any weather conditions because we'll be in a dome. If you think there's going to be points, you know, it's going to be a lead dogs in that game. It's going to be Cooper Kupp. It's going to be Puka Nacua. And there's a chance that either one of them or both can actually explode in that game, Ben.
And it's the highest total of the weekend, 51.5 for Sunday night at Ford Field in the Motor City. Yardage prop of this weekend, not alt line, but just favorite yardage prop is what?
Come on, Najee's getting at least 20 touches in this football game out of the backfield. He's going over 60.5. This is going to be a game that's won on the ground, and I'll take Najee in that spot here.
I've already bet it along with you, Donnie. He's had at least 78 yards in the last 3 games. The Steelers won to earn a playoff berth, more than 110 the last 2 weeks as well. Weather conditions are going to be terrible. A ton of wind means you're going to establish the run. David Njoku for me, over 56.5 receiving yards. We mentioned it. Joe Flacco has thrown for at least 309 yards in 4 straight games, and Njoku has been over this number with at least 91 in 3 of the 4. Ironically, the only game he went under was against Houston in week number 16. Well, Amari Cooper had 265 of Joe Flacco's 368. And David Njoku still finished with 44, and he was targeted 9 times and had 6 grabs. David Njoku over 56.5 receiving yards against Houston in the first game up of Super Wild Card Weekend of the 6 that we have. 2-leg, 6-point teaser. I'm going to take the Cowboys down from that flat number of 7 through the 2 key numbers of 7 and 3. Pretty much Dallas to win outright against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday afternoon. I think Green Bay can keep it competitive. I expect Dallas to advance to the divisional round.
Yeah, my sentiments as well. For me, it's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football getting the 9 points here. So we're led to believe that the Eagles can't get out of their own way down the stretch here. They're going to be able to cover by double digits on the road with a quarterback that possibly can't throw. Give me Tampa Bay with the 9. And I hope, as a fan, the Eagles win. But come on, man. They're going to cover over 7. No. Tampa's 9.
And we'll preview that game on Monday, but not before a best bet to end out this week on the early line. You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars have, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression this season. Not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Closing out our 3 hours together live right here on a playoff football Friday on the early line on SportsGrid, and our week together here on TEL as well. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. But even if we go for the weekend, the SportsGrid app is always there. You can download it at the Apple and the Play Store or scan that QR code on your screen. I might not see you tomorrow, but Donnie Rightside will, bright and early 9 a.m. Eastern time on a playoff Pro Football Today alongside Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi. They'll do it again on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. DRS, you ready for a busy weekend?
We're going to be breaking tendencies all over the place this weekend on the SportsGrid network here, Ben. How about that?
Just make sure you get the good headset. So before you see Donnie tomorrow, you need a best bet on this Friday. So before we say goodbye, before we say farewell, it is time for bye, bye, bye. Donnie Rightside, before Super Wild Card Weekend, where are we looking?
Yeah, we're going to Buffalo here. Oh, Donnie's going to the NFL. No, he's not, people. He's going to the Metro Atlantic Conference tonight. Sienna and Canisius from the Kessler Athletic Center. You say, why would you be going to this game? Look at Sienna's offense, Ben. 357th in the country in adjusted efficiency. Effective field goal percentage, 346. Turnover possession, almost 25% of the time that the basketball, they turn it over here. You know what this is going to happen? In under 66.5 points for Sienna in this basketball game. How about that? Metro Atlantic basketball live right here.
I don't even know if I can form a thought or a sentence after that. I thought you were going to pick the Sabres. I thought maybe you'd give us a Bills pick for Sunday, and all of a sudden it's a Sienna team total under 66.5. When Donnie starts to care about college basketball, his team totals As good
Yes,
as you
sir.
will find out in the
Come on.
landscape. Quickly here for me, because I won't see you this weekend. Isaiah Pacheco, over 64.5 rushing yards tomorrow night on a very cold night in Arrowhead against the Miami Dolphins. He's Donnie. I am Ben. We'll see you on Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern time here on the Early Line. Have a great weekend.